Hello and welcome to Yield Theater's What a Director Needs. Today we are going to talk about the first read-through and motivations during blocking. Today we have four very accomplished directors: Sherry Wright, Laura DeMolin, Madge Montgomery, and Nancy Van Fleet. Now you've done your work, you've read the script many times, now you have your actors. And you've got some motivations for that first read through, your first time with that ensemble. What are you trying to accomplish? What's your motivation there?
I think one of the things that I look for most is, can there be a connection between the actors and the script? Can they find it within themselves to start realizing they can be this character? But also for me as a director, I'm looking for almost the soul of the story. And can I see that with my actors? Can they bring something forward with them that makes me go, oh, I can work with this?
Well, I think the read-through really can set the tone for the rest of the process. It's a chance for everybody to sit in a circle and put the text as the foremost thing. So I'm not looking for necessarily a perfectly acted read-through. I would prefer that people read for meaning and looked for connections and just discover this script for the first time together.
Sherry?
I look for the listening. Read-through to me is when everybody gets together and hears each other for the first time. And also the introduction to each other and to the direction, to the staff, to what the set's going to look like, how this is going to come together. But it's just the introduction. It's not really trying to get anybody into character, like Madge said, but to hear what that script is going to sound like, whether it be a musical, sometimes you get together and sing along, or you listen. But I think listening is the most important thing for me in a read-through, is what it sounds like.
I think, taking Sherry's point about listening, I look for the actors to connect to each other in some kind of significant relationship and start building on those relationships in that first read-through. So yes, they do need to listen to each other and hear each other, and I look for those little relationships to start becoming real to them.
And what are your expectations as a director for the actors coming into that first read through? What do you?
I think it depends on the show. I'd love to have had them have gone through it and read it at least one time so that they're not stumbling over the words. But at the same time, I want it to be fresh. I almost, even though I said I want there to be a connection, I also want to see them discover it and see if they can make it theirs.
I disagree in a sense. I do tend to expect my actors to have read the entire script, not just their part, which happens a lot.
Yes.
But I do expect them to read the entire script and at least get an idea of the story before the read-through, and then discover the relationships.
I would agree with that. I think that they need to be familiar with it. I would like for them to do some research on their characters, and especially in a historical context. If they have a play that is set in a different era that they're familiar with, to get familiar with that part of it. And also their relationship to the story, whatever that might be. And yes, they need to read the entire script and do a little bit of homework before they get there. And then we'll discover things together.
Yeah, I think I want to see that it's evident that they've read the play and that they've thought about it, and that might come through in a conversation that you have either before or after the actual read-through. But basic familiarity, I don't necessarily expect them to have all their choices figured out, certainly. In fact, I want to see that hint that they're flexible and ready to discover things. because that's the work we do together rather than on their own.
Summer, what are some of the questions you'd like to hear from your actors?
Oh, not what's my motivation. But anything that might pertain to the character that they don't understand. For example, what period of time is this set in? How does this relate to where we are? How do I convey that? There are all kinds of things that come from the character itself and how that actor can relate to the character and what they can bring to it.
I think that asking questions definitely about the historical, time frame, the framework of the play. What does this particular reference mean? What does it mean to my character? Why do I say it that way? Language questions. Why doing Arthur Miller is very different than doing a modern play. Why do they express things this way in the 30s and 40s? So yes, the dramaturg part of it, I think, comes in with the actors. Most of us don't have the luxury of having a dramaturg. So the actors have to be their own dramaturg, and I'd like to hear those kinds of questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with what Nancy and Sherry have been saying, that it's really about discovering the world of the play, so questions about what the historical context is, or even questions about the playwright and other works that they've done. And I think that you have to have a conversation about the director's vision of the play and wondering why this play was selected, or what drew me to the script, and then to find that way to get the actors to connect to that.
And I was going to say that too. I really would like them to want to know what I see bringing this play forward. So everything that everybody said is absolutely what I think everybody looks for students and actors bringing their thoughts, their ideas, but wanting to know above and beyond that. When I did Fiddler on the Roof, I wanted them to be able to ask me about their traditions and their religion, because I wanted them to understand how important that played a part in everything from that point forward. And like you were saying, Arthur Miller is very, very different than, and they need to understand that no play is ever just a play, that it's always something more and different from what they've done before.
Okay, let's go on to blocking. So what motivates your blocking in terms of your decisions in blocking?
I look at the play as an overall whole and what my entire vision is. I want the actors to feel that they have a part in discovering what some of that blocking is. I want them to do what feels natural to them, and to have a conversation with me if what I'm telling them to do doesn't work. But my motivation is, I don't want to detract from the story. I want it to enhance it. I want it to be a supplement. I don't want it to take the place. And sometimes I think that people are so sold on it has to be this way at this time that you lose some of the spontaneity of the play. So I want there to be flexibility, and I want there to be a shared collaboration with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and I think blocking decisions are driven a lot by the style of the play, because if you're doing something that's naturalistic, then you might really approach blocking from the point of view of characters relating to the actual space as a very real place, and wanting to represent that in a very real, authentic, natural way. But if you're doing something that's more stylized, then the blocking really has to have that discussion of what is informing that stylistic approach, where it might not be naturalistic. So I think actors have to kind of understand the style that it's going to take physically in order to make good decisions about how to improvise a blocking choice. I don't pre-block typically, although I have some ideas about how I want it to flow, but I do want the actors to work it out with me and have it be collaborative.
I'm with you. For the most part, what I will do is block exits and entrances and key moments. And but there are some plays that if you don't choreograph the blocking, actors will be running into each other and many people will get hurt. So plays like William Shakespeare Abridged or Noises Off, we spoke about this earlier. I think that there are times when the director kind of has to have a little bit of a heavy hand with blocking.
Or someone's going to get hurt. Sherry?
I approach blocking a little bit like choreography. So, it depends, A, on the set design, B, on what it is that you're doing, whether it's a musical or a crowd scene or two people talking. So actors can be more involved with the latter than the former. So, I don't normally do very, very strict blocking like Madge. I'm with her. I have a vision of it, but I'm not going to say, okay, you have to stand over here 2 feet before the chair comes in, whatever that might be. But a lot of times, you can't really have an actor do that for you because it becomes a little bit of a mushy whole vision. It's just not correct. So, my whole thing with blocking is I tell people in advance, this is the painful part. So just come with an open mind and the fact that we're going to have to deal with certain designs and, we'll do the character stuff later. This is the mechanical things. And so choreographically, we have to do that. In the play that I'm currently in, we had problems with that because the director and the choreographer were kind of disagreeing on what should be where at a particular time. And choreography, you have to do it on a beat. You can't just say to a chorus, all right, right now I would like for you to do this. On what beat is that? They'll all do it on a different one. So in order for it to look mechanically correct, that's what a blocking rehearsal is for me.
And I think, you said about the difference between a crowd scene and two people. I think that many actors don't understand that they're equally difficult.
Oh, yes.
And they just think if I'm on stage with one other person, what's the big deal? We all know how hard it is to do a crowd scene, but when you're trying to do two people and keep it interesting and keep people wanting to watch, you have to be very delicate about what you're doing. And then you run into the problem when the set pieces actually come out and what you've blocked isn't exactly what or where you thought it was going to be. And so trying to get your actors to understand that it is the hard part, it's the mechanical part, and it's the part that needs to be incredibly flexible when other things start showing up on the stage.
In terms of, there are actors who are, very regimented. There are actors who are very freeform. Which do you want to see, or does it depend on the play?
Oh, neither. No. I had a student once continually say, when I'd say, I want you to face the audience, but I can't do that. That breaks the fourth wall. I said, you just need to trust me on this. There are times when it's okay to do that. I think I'd rather have more free form because for me, it's easier to rein that in than it is to break out of the rigid. And that's just from my experience. The rigid people I've worked with are so solidly fixated on what they think needs to happen that it's harder for me to get them to come out of that. It's easier to rein in because usually if they're free-spirited, they're also flexible and they're also willing to listen to the why of what I want to have happen.
Okay, so I guess that also, it's going to depend on the actor very much as well.
Mm-hmm.
And their experience, because I worked with an actor once who had mainly worked in musicals and was used to a very strict choreographed approach. And when I said, well, we're going to uncover this through talking about relationships, she was really lost and felt like I wasn't maybe even doing my job because I wasn't telling her. But once she understood the approach, then she could embrace it. So sometimes you have to make sure you understand the background of the actor in order to be able to talk to them about how you're going to work.
And that's a matter of communication.
Yes,
so that's
exactly.
very, very important in directing at any level, that you communicate with your actors on the level that they are so that you can bring their talents into the play.
And many times the read-through will tell you that.
Yes, yeah.
That's true.
So I think, yeah, and setting out your expectations.
I
Very
try
important.
very hard to be a very transparent director about what I'm looking for, about what I need, about what my vision is, and at the same time, letting them know and honor where they're coming from, what they're bringing to the table, and that it's an open dialogue, but at the same time, ultimately having them understand I don't want to say I'm the end-all be-all as a director, because I always hated that kind of a director, but ultimately this is what I see and this is what I want to have happen. But if I don't like or can't appreciate or understand where they're coming from, that I can explain to them why I don't think it will work.
I agree. And a lot of it is, all right, my word is the law after a certain point.
Right.
So you can bring whatever you want to the table, but if it's not working and if it's not communicating to the audience the way you think it's going to and the way I would like to see it, then it's my word. And that's what it is to be a director. Otherwise, you've got chaos.
Exactly. It all comes down to trust. Trust me that I can see the big picture, that, and all you're seeing is what's on stage around you. Each age group, you really had to reach on a different level. You know, the kindergarten through third graders, I made them the fairies, and they related to that.
Sure.
And then we had the next group was the fourth through I think sixth was the court, and they related to that. So I kind of segmented the show out so that they could understand the roles that they were playing. It is so much fun to watch them make that discovery and the connection with the language, with Shakespeare particularly. To have third graders, 8-year-olds, fall in love with that language was so fun. So yes, and trust me that this is going to work. I rehearse them each group individually and then put them all together at the end.
And then there are the adults that you have to treat like junior high schoolers.
Yes.
Especially during blocking rehearsals.
Well, as an actor, you're going to run up a director who is very regimented and very choreographed, and you need to do this, and then there are going to be the more freeform directors. As an actor, how do I tell what the director is beforehand? Or during that first rehearsal, I'm going to get some clues as to, or their first couple of rehearsals. I'm going to get some clues. What should I be on the lookout for?
Usually during the read-through, if the director is giving you line readings and telling you how you should say this, that's going to be somebody who's going to be very regimented.
Okay.
And actually, I disagree just a little bit with that, because when I was working with my high school students, sometimes I felt it was important to give them very direct, this is what you need to be thinking about. But I tried not to present it from, this is what I want. It was, this is what you need to be thinking about with this character. But for the most part, when you're working with adult actors, like in a community theater production or a bigger stage production, that would be a scary thing. If I heard a director saying to me as an adult actor, oh no, you need to do this and this and this, I think that would make me as an actor feel very uncomfortable, that it's this, even though we talked about it, my word is law, and this is my vision. At the same time, if there's no room for collaboration, that makes it really difficult.
Well, and it's all a matter of communication. So, like you said, if you're at a read-through and somebody says, this is what you need to do, versus asking the question,
Right.
what is it that you think you need to do? If it's questions, then you're going to know that there's somebody more flexible. If it's demands, then
Absolutely.
you know that it's somebody not flexible, and you have to handle it. So there are ways to handle it within that framework, but at the same time, that to me is the difference.
And maybe, going back to our conversation about the read-through, maybe for actors, that's a great question to ask is, what are you expecting of me in the blocking rehearsal? And, most directors, I do think, give a pretty good, they do a pretty good job of communicating their style. But if it's not clear, I think actors should feel free to ask about it. I don't think anybody would be offended by that. So.
Well, and if they are, then you know what kind of direction
Yes,
you're working on.
exactly.
You are certain. And thank you for joining us for Yield Theater's What a Director Needs. I'm Greg Winkler. See you next time. So-